This week on the Cynical Centrist Podcast, dipshit Dinesh tries to pick on a 16-year-old Swedish girl. Why double standards from both liberals and conservatives make me absolutely sick. Andrew Yang got an 8% in a recent national poll, and what the hell is wrong with you, DNC? What the hell are you thinking, having 12 people at once and a 10-person debate was just hard enough to watch, and I can barely even think, and... Okay, just gonna work on the intro. Whew. All this and more this week on the Cynical Centrist Podcast. Cue the music. You're probably wondering what's going to make me laugh out of Alabama. Well, pretty much everything. But us? No. We don't have to follow those rules. We're the good guys. Could be worse than being a human Cheeto. You could be a clown that does porn. And whenever they say the word realistic, take a drink, you would probably be dead by the end of the night.
If he's not pissing you off, he's not doing his job. This is the Cynical Centrist Podcast.
Welcome to the Cynical Centrist Podcast, episode number 21 for September the 28th, 2019. I am the Cynical Centrist. And look, I know there was a ton of crap on the news this week, but I never really got around to a lot of it, mainly because I spent most of the week playing with my new NES and SNES Classic minis I got from GameStop on the way back home. And yeah, so I've spent my last week, I'd say about 70 to 80% of the time playing as a 90s kid. Because mainly I never actually had these consoles as a kid. My family did not want to spend the money on them, and they didn't see a point in spending about $40 to $50 per game, and like $200 for a gaming console system. And I know a lot of my friends tell me, oh, you've been so deprived of your childhood. And yeah, so I thought I would spend time as a 90s kid for a week. And it lasted all of about 4 to 5 days. And I will say I had a good time and all. I do feel like that I missed out on a lot of things that a lot of people talk about today that I'm just starting to catch up on. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be playing Legend of Zelda after this, the original one on the NES. And plus, it would be nice to take things a little light for the next few weeks because I put up like 4 videos 2 weeks ago on YouTube, and then I did another 2 last week, and one of those was an interview with Shaylee. So yeah, I think I deserve, to take things a little bit lightly for the next couple of weeks. Because, like I said, I originally planned on this being a weekly show, and now it's going to become occasionally twice a week. Plus, I'm getting ready for my move, so that's another thing I have to prepare myself for. So I'm not expecting the next Tuesday guest talk to happen for about another month or so, just so I can get everything set up. I will let you know, though, when I have that guest talk ready. So, let's move on to the news. Top of the news I want to talk about is Greta Thunberg. I hope I pronounced that name correctly. So over the week, we had the 2019 UN Climate Action Summit, and a 16-year-old girl from Sweden named Greta Thunberg gave a very passionate speech regarding climate change and saying that she was robbed of her childhood, and I think she was on a protest or something. She protested. She wouldn't go to school every Friday in protest for the climate change, I guess because she's working on certain things during that day related to climate change, I think. Now, before I get to my opinion on this, I do want to make 2 things of note. First off, fuck Dinesh D'Souza for his tweet regarding this girl and comparing her to Nazi propaganda in World War II. Just because she's blonde and has pigtails. Lots of girls at that age have pigtails. Hell, I even put up one picture that I saw as a reply to one of his tweets that was showing a slightly older woman, probably in her early 20s, also wearing pigtails and blonde hair, and was carrying a gun, and I think had like a I Love God or I Love America tank top. So, I mean, to say that this is Nazi propaganda and saying, like, we don't do it, we don't do stuff like this, that's absolute bullshit and you know it. So yeah, Dinesh D'Souza, fuck you. I even got a new nickname for the guy. I nicknamed him Dipshit Dinesh over the week. So if I ever have to refer to Dinesh D'Souza again, I'll probably use Dipshit Dinesh the Dumbass, and any other nicknames that you want to throw. Hey, you know what? You can probably throw in a whole bunch of names. I heard Dinesh D'Souza, and I almost went with that one. All right, I've talked way too much about that loser. Anyway, the second part that I wanted to talk about was hearing a lot of others on the left, and especially those that are so quick to protect this girl, talk about how we never do something like that. Except they did. Just this year, with a 17-year-old boy named Nick Sandmann. And I find it really interesting. Now, granted, this was over a March for Life rally. And for those of you that don't remember, Nick Sandmann was this 17-year-old boy that went to a Christian school. The Christian school's name was Covington Catholic High School. At first, I thought that was like in Georgia somewhere, but apparently it was not. It was actually somewhere in Kentucky, and he was just kind of sitting there looking all smug with his little smile and his MAGA hat, and there was a Native American man named Nathan Phillips dancing around him while he was smiling so smugly, and you can tell I didn't really like the guy per se. I mean, the kid seemed like he was kind of a dick, and I don't like how the right portrayed him as innocent by any means. I mean, yeah, granted, he probably just sat there and smiled, but you can tell the intentions were very, very different from what the right-wing media tries to portray. However, on Twitter, you would see journalists and people with verified tags talk about how punchable the guy's face is and how they want to attack him and how they throw threats at him, and he even got a couple death threats as well, from people with verified checkmarks and who still have verified checkmarks. And these same people, I'm not saying all of them came out, but I will say a good number of them that I remembered, I looked and saw what they had said regarding Greta Thunberg, and they talked about how horrible it was for the right to call this woman and compare her to Nazi propaganda in World War II. I mean, pot called kettle black. What fucking hypocrites these people are. Let's be real. You aren't worried about protecting 16 or 17-year-old teenagers. The only reason why you want Greta Thunberg protected so much is because she's on your side. Just like how people on the right wanted to protect Nick Sandmann because he was on their side. You guys are just using your political polarization and using these teenagers and kids as pawns in your little political game. And it's complete shit. I mean, I get it. It's the game of politics. Fine. Whatever. But look, we have to set the rules and the standards for everyone. I hate double standards. And to say that it's okay for us to use children as pawns, but not for the other side to use them as pawns, or it's okay for us to attack teenagers on their side, but it's not okay for them to attack teenagers on our side, is a double standard. And like I said, one thing that is a pet peeve more than anything else for me is a double standard. So on that sense, fuck all of you who want to protect Greta and who attacked Nick Sandmann 7 months ago. Fuck every single one of you. I don't give a shit who you are. And yes, I'm a lot angrier than normal today because that is one thing I cannot stand with people is this stupid double standards. I get it. Everyone has some sort of double standards in their lives regarding like friends versus strangers and other people like that. But when it comes to politics, everyone should be under the same damn rule book. And I just find it really bothersome that people want to live by a different rule book for themselves and then another rule book for everyone that they disagree with politically. And it drives me crazy. This is probably the reason why I don't really believe in Andrew Yang's Humanity First message so much, even though I support him, because I feel like it's a fantasy. I mean, you see shit like this, and what am I supposed to think? That we can actually change from this to everybody is equal in everyone's eyes like Andrew Yang wants? Anyway, my opinion on the situation regarding this is the same that I've told you guys regarding climate change on tweets. And that is, climate change is happening. Now, whether it is that we have 10 years, 50 years, or 2 minutes, we have to recognize that the Earth is getting warmer. And there's heat maps out there that show that. Hell, one project I did for freecodecamp.org was a heat map that you could make on D3 JavaScript. And for those of you that don't know D3, it's just some data visualization system that's used to make fancy little graphs and pie charts, in this case a heat map, of global temperatures since 1760. And you can actually see it gradually getting warmer and warmer and warmer, especially after around the 1920s, 1930s, around the Industrial Revolution. So, I mean, there is a connection there. Now, I kind of disagree that we only have 10 or 15 years and that we have to take such drastic action like Bernie Sanders or AOC wants to a point where we put our economy in jeopardy for two reasons. And also Greta's comment on us having visions of eternal economic growth, fantasies, she said, fantasies of eternal economic growth. I get it, she's 16 years old, but it's very clear that she doesn't quite understand that in order to encourage people to help out with climate change and trying to get the earth from warming any more than it already is, we need a stable economy. Now, granted, we don't need an eternally growing economy, but we need some sort of a stable economy. And for certain plans out there, like the Green New Deal, that is going to require a budget that would be 3 or 4 times our extremely bloated defense budget, I just find that very dangerous to just making a stable economy. Never mind a growing economy, a stable economy. Like you talk about, yeah, we're going to grow jobs and whatnot, and I believe there is a federal job guarantee that's put into the Green New Deal. But how long is that job going to be guaranteed? Especially if automation can do a lot of those jobs better. That's something that you have to think about, especially if some of those involve constructions, like, the construction of solar panels and other things like that. I mean, that's something that robots could probably do better. I mean, it would require a few humans, and yes, I'm pretty sure it'll create jobs, but I have this feeling that it will eventually long-term destroy more jobs than it's going to create. And it is going to force the public into certain jobs that they don't want to be forced into. So I do think that the Green New Deal, while at least it's a solution, is just not a solution that's going to work long-term. Yeah, I think it could possibly work in the short term. I haven't really thought about that, but I know that long-term, it's not a very good idea, at least to me. Also, I feel like Greta's rhetoric was very off and was very off-putting to me. And it was kind of weird that they're going to throw a 16-year-old out there. And I think later on they threw a 13 or 14-year-old Native American girl as well on this climate change summit in New York. And just trying to bring all these teenagers and kids out is just a little bit off-putting and really makes them look advantageous and opportunistic. And that's definitely not something that is going to fare very well, especially when most independents are still questioning on whether or not their idea is even, if it even exists, which, by the way, climate change is not a hoax, people. It is existing, like I've said over and over again. If you want, I'll even show you that heat map that I made on climate change that you can see for yourself. That was on freecodecamp.org. And yeah, so I'll actually use that as the thumbnail on the YouTube video. So you can go on my YouTube video and it will have a picture of that heat map. Sound good? Awesome. All right, but either way, I know that it was very opportunistic of them, but hey, you know what? It's kind of nice that these kids actually believe in something. That's kind of admirable to see. Even if I disagree with them on some of the details, it is admirable that they believe in something and they really do feel like they're trying to save the world. And that's awesome. So, hey, Greta, I got no problems. Yeah, I got a few minor issues with what she had said and her wanting to say that it's not enough what we're doing. But you know what? You do you, all right? Absolutely, keep going. I mean, I absolutely like that these people actually believe in something. And that's something that I think is admirable. And yeah, maybe I'm positively biased towards her because she has Asperger's syndrome like I do. But hey, at least she's trying something out there, and she's trying to push herself out there as an activist of something. It's a little bit too idealistic for me, but all in all, hey, I got no problems. Anyway, moving on. Impeachment proceedings have begun as of Wednesday, I believe, at the time of this recording. Well, the time of this recording is actually on Friday night, but as of Wednesday, we had impeachment proceedings begin for Donald Trump after his call with the president of Ukraine was released. And basically, the big point regarding this is that he was withholding foreign aid from Ukraine, and he would give it back. In return, they dig up some dirt on Joe Biden. Namely, Joe Biden's son, who I believe took a job at one of the oil companies. And I believe one of those oil companies was in the Ukraine, and there's been an issue over whether or not that, it was a case of nepotism or whether or not he was actually qualified for the job. But what I really wanted to look at was mostly the media's response to the Trump and Biden controversy. And it goes just about as well as you'd expect, right? What, with the mainstream media, the liberal news stations anyways, picking on Donald Trump for daring to go after Biden and, basically strong-arming the Ukrainian president in order to get an investigation done on Joe Biden and his son, and Fox News pretty much talking about that investigation on Biden and pretending like whatever Trump did wrong was not really much of a case. And of course, when the calls came in, Fox News has started to turn a little bit, and you've been hearing about talks from, I can't believe this, Paul Ryan is apparently on their board for whatever reason. All right, Paul Ryan saying that he wants to cut ties with Trump. Just the fact that Fox News has ties with any one candidate and is in bed with any one politician is an absolute insult to journalism. But nevertheless, here nor there, I get it. Stations are in bed with politicians all the time because that's how they get their insider looks now. It's not like the way that it used to be. It's just a complete circus. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that the impeachment process has begun, and it is looking like that they will likely impeach Donald Trump. Now, it's not a guarantee as of this point, because they only have 203 as of the time of this recording of the 218 that they need to impeach him. And I think that includes Justin Amash, so 203. And they will still need a few more Democrats to come out and agree, and they might even need a couple of Republicans as well. Not sure how that's going to go down as of yet. So will impeachment be likely? We will find out. I do think it is going to be likely that he will be impeached, but in the sense, will he be removed from office with the Senate? And the answer to that is a guaranteed no. And the reason why is because it's not a simple majority that they're going to need in the Senate. It'll be 67 votes, a 2/3 majority. And as of right now, there are 53 Republicans and 47 Democrats, 47 caucusing Democrats in the Senate, which basically means that they will need every Democrat, including Manchin and Doug Jones in Alabama, to vote okay. And they're going to need 20 Republicans. I've said this before a few months back, that if they wanted to play this game, they had to go in knowing that the chances of Donald Trump being removed from office were about as good as me winning Mega Millions tomorrow night. All right? Now, who could they possibly convince? I mean, Susan Collins up in Maine is the most likely possibility. So they could probably convince her, especially since she's trying to hold on to her office in the 2020 election up in Maine, in a mostly Democrat state. So there's that. There's a good chance, too, although less likely, that Mitt Romney will vote to remove Trump. Just because he is, one, he really wants to get back at Trump, and he's probably fearless enough that he's going to want to do something like that. Not to mention the state of Utah isn't exactly enamored with Trump. I mean, they're almost a swing state at this point, at least temporarily. Ted Cruz hasn't been exactly 100% with Donald Trump either. That's another possibility. And Tom Tillis up in North Carolina. Now, that's a little bit of a stretch, I feel like, although a couple people have kind of added his name onto that list because North Carolina is turning a little bit blue. And yeah, I get it. I'm kind of moving over there. And it is a lot bluer than where I live now, but I still think it's pretty red for the most part, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, here nor there, okay, we'll throw him in there as well, all right? So that's 4 Republicans. You still need 16. Where are you going to get that 16 from? Graham? Cornyn? I mean, there just isn't a way that you can remove Trump from office. Now, you can probably just barely get a majority. With those 4, you will get the 51 votes that you will need to have a majority, and maybe the Democrats can get some sort of moral victory out of it. But I don't see the audience looking at this as a moral victory of any sort. I really do think that you will have some independents kind of turned off by the Democrats' actions, and it's just going to make re-election that much easier for Trump. I think that Trump is coming in as an underdog. I would have to probably reevaluate that following this. Now, obviously, this will depend on the approval rating, so we'll see there. But the only thing that we have to go on is Bill Clinton, whose approval ratings went up after a failure to remove him from office. So expecting something similar than that with Donald Trump. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit tougher for the Democrat challenger, whoever that may be, to face him. So that's enough about Trump and the impeachment story. I was going to talk about I promised I was going to talk about the Israel elections and Netanyahu, but I have to put that aside for next week. Because while I was researching right before I did the recording of the first 2 segments, this came up. And, oh my God, DNC. Democrat National Committee, Convention, whatever the hell you're called. What the hell is wrong with you guys? Seriously. Okay, so for the October debates, they had said that if we went over 10 people, that we would cut the debate into 2 nights, which sounded awesome, right? That means that most of the candidates would have time to talk. And maybe with 6 people in each debate, even if the debate was only 2 hours long, we would actually get a chance to hear from every single candidate. And we would actually see, longer debate responses that are longer than a minute and a half. I asked for at least 2 minutes. Responses of longer than 45 seconds, I asked for 75 seconds, 90 seconds even. I would settle for a minute response. Just actual plans and policy that we could hear about instead of this turning into some sort of game show over who got the most gotchas. Well, apparently, CNN and the New York Times hate my guts because they've decided that they are going to merge the debates into one night. That's right, 12 candidates, one night. Now, my first response to this was a resounding, no, 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 no. And then I thought about it for about 2 seconds, then another minute. And then my response became, no, 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 no. And, oh my God, DNC. Okay. I'm pretty sure that the DNC have a perfectly good reason for this. Or CNN or the New York Times or whatever. So let's take a look at what that reason possibly could be. Now, according to this article from CNN, they said, to address several inquiries we have received, we are writing to let you know that pending a final decision after the certification deadline, it is the intention of the DNC and our media partners to hold the October debate over one night on Tuesday, October the 15th, which basically means that they plan to expand this to 13 if Marianne Williamson by some miracle gets in. Wonderful. Now, according to the reason, they said that a DNC official said several factors were taken into account in deciding to focus on one night. Our goal has always been to expand viewership, and we also believe that one night worked well for this last debate. Yeah, because there were 10 people, so there really wasn't much of a difference between it and the MSNBC or CNN debates. There were more people showing up because all the heavyweights were there. Oh my God. At this point, I mean, what? I'm still in shock here. I mean, okay, on one end, now for my candidate, Andrew Yang, this basically makes October almost a throwaway debate. Now, he's almost certainly going to get the threshold he needs for November to get into the November debate, as I think he's currently the highest scored, according to my Bubble Watch, the highest scored non-lock candidate as of right now. He only needs 2 polls to get in. And that's neither here nor there. It's just such a shame for the candidates that are a little bit lower than him. People like, I'm going to say even Beto, Castro. how many seconds are they going to get to answer a question? 10? How many seconds are they going to get for a response? 5? Like, seriously, this is ridiculous. You're not going to get around to 12 candidates. Yeah, you'll have more viewers, but they're going to come out thinking that they know nothing about policy. It's just going to be a bunch of people shooting jabs at each other. This is like Idiocracy. This really is like that movie, with the House of Representatives. I hate to keep using Idiocracy in everything that I say regarding politics, but that is literally what we are going at here. The media is dumbing us down. The media is trying to tell us that we're too stupid to understand our policies of our candidates, so we just have to hope that they take subtle jabs at the other candidates to knock them down in the polls, and maybe enough people will knock them down in that. Oh, DNC, you really are the most incompetent organization. I should say the most incompetent public organization that I have ever seen. And you wonder why you lost to Donald Trump. You wonder why we can't trust you with keeping Trump from getting reelected, or even reelected a second time at this rate. Yeah, I get it. I'm moderate politically. But look, I want to get rid of Trump this time so we can start focusing on building a proper healthcare system, and you guys are definitely not helping in this. And of course, it's CNN, so we're only going to get one chance to watch the debates before they just put out snapshots on their YouTube. We're not going to get to see the full debates like we did with ABC. Awesome! Oh, yes, and it's the New York Times. So you know what that means? That's right. These guys have botched more articles than anyone I've seen in the last month that they could have their own Botchamania episode. Oh, great. This debate is going to be absolutely awesome. And, oh my God, you know what? I can't believe I'm saying this. You know what? Might as well just punt one debate to Fox News. Why not? They couldn't do any worse than what you guys are doing right now. I can't believe I'm saying this because I get it. They didn't want to give anything to Fox News because they don't like Democrats. But you know what? Punt one to them. Hell, punt one to the Young Turks. I trust the Young Turks to host a better debate than you guys do. I have a ton of disagreements with them regarding the Green New Deal and $15 an hour minimum wage, crushing the economies of some of the areas that currently are at $7.25 and why they're so cheap and how they would inflate prices to the sky. But look, you know what? I trust them. They're at least authentic. At least they're not trying to bullshit me. At least they'll tell it like it is. You guys are playing this stupid-ass circus game and trying to protect your establishment candidates, that being Biden and Harris. I know a lot of people say Warren's an establishment candidate, but I don't completely see it yet. I'll say Biden, Harris, and Buttigieg, so that you guys can control the show, and you guys think those candidates are the most electable versus Trump. Are you kidding me? You don't realize how much damage Biden is going to have following this Ukraine scandal. You don't realize how much damage Buttigieg already is having right now with the firing of Chief Boykins. And Kamala Harris, well, she has a chance to redeem herself, but right now she looks like, from the last debate, she looked like a drunk aunt. If she does that again, she is done. It is over. She needs to look presidential like she did the first debate. But at least I know the Young Turks will give every single candidate an equal shake. At least I know Fox News has no dog in this fight. If they're going to make everyone look dumb, they'll make everyone look dumb equally. With you guys, you already played favorites. I already know who you want to win. And I don't want your guys to win because those guys have terrible policies. I want a candidate who actually knows what the hell that they believe in. Yeah, Bernie may be way too far left for me. Bernie Sanders, and you guys don't like him either. But you know what? At least the guy has a plan. At least I know that the guy has good intentions. At least I know the guy is authentic. And at least I know with this guy, his plans, even though I might not agree with them, he'll do his best to get them implemented and work for all Americans. And yes, as I've said a million times already, I may not agree with them, but at least he's got that going for him, and I can respect him for that. And don't even get me started on Andrew Yang, because otherwise I would have this show be over 1 hour, and I want to keep my hard cap of 45 minutes, thank you very much. Biden, Harris, Buttigieg, hell, I don't even know what they stand for half the time. What do you expect me to do with policies like that? Like, I know Kamala Harris wanted some kind of $500 UBI plan for low-income families. They only want to push incremental changes that help out a certain type of group instead of universal changes for everyone. Like, Social Security. You know what? I should go on a rant on YouTube. I said that I didn't want to do anything extra, but I'm really considering doing something for YouTube. And what, with everyone telling me they're going to do it, they're going to do it, they're going to shoot themselves in the dick again, they're going to shoot themselves in the dick again. I really did not believe that they were going to do this, but oh my goodness, they're actually going to do it. Oh boy. I should put some background music or something behind this too, just so you guys can realize just how stupid and derp this all is. They're making Delaney look smart, alright? This is how bad that we're talking about. They're making Trump look smart. This is how bad the DNC have gotten. This is an absolute circus. Wider audience. Who cares about policy? Policy? What's a policy? We just want those guys out there that will tell platitudes to the poor, so that way they don't realize just how fucked they are. Oh my. Oh, these elections, man. You know what? I get it. The U.S. elections right now, especially the Democrat primaries, look like a circus, but hey, at least we're not the U.K. government, right? I mean, Boris Johnson is on track to being, as far as I know, the shortest reigned prime minister in the United Kingdom's history. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I had to ask a follower of my channel, Ain Maps, I wanted to thank Aindaris Mapping, to explain to me how the UK system works and how they elected their leaders and how the House of Commons worked and the House of Lords and like the entire government system over in the United Kingdom. But last I checked, Boris Johnson is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. And it's mainly because it seems like he wants a no-deal Brexit, and his friends on the conservative side are trying to push towards a no-deal Brexit. But we have others trying to call for another re-election. There's other people calling for a deal with Brexit. It is looking like another general election is going to happen over there, where they're going to elect new parliamentary... This is how you know I don't really know much about UK government. But I did want to talk about just the absolute ineptitude of Boris Johnson, about DNC levels of ineptitude as the government there crumbles. And what is it about guys with the last name of Johnson and just this ability to screw everything up? Do any of you guys remember that Libertarian candidate, Gary Johnson? Man, he had a golden opportunity for the Libertarian Party to get at least 5% nationally, and maybe even win a couple states in the 2016 election between two candidates that were the two least popular candidates of their respective parties of all time. And I think he even got as high as like 13% at one time. He was almost getting to a point where he could actually get on the national debate stage. And the national debate stage popular vote requirement was 15%, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. And no third-party candidate has made it there since Ross Perot in 1992. But it is what it is, and he was about to break the mold for that. Until one day in September 2016, he went on MSNBC's Morning Joe, and panelist Mike Barnicle asked the former New Mexico governor what was he going to do if he was elected about Aleppo, which, by the way, is the epicenter of that refugee crisis that was going on in Syria at the time. And he responded with, "And what is Aleppo?" To which the response that he got was, "You're kidding, right?" And he's like, "No." Now, obviously, for the casual viewer, they would probably be a little bit confused as to the Aleppo question, as the word Aleppo was not really used very often at the time to describe the Syria crisis. But him as a presidential candidate, and especially as someone at the time only 2 or 3 points short of getting into that national debate stage of extremely strict requirements, by the way, he had said that he did not know anything about foreign policy just based off that one question. And that's really, really sad to think about. If that didn't tumble him downwards, I mean, it did. It tumbled him down to like 8-9%. A couple weeks later, he had another interview on MSNBC, and his response, when asked if he would break even with Trump and Clinton if he was put into a national debate, he said, of course he would. It wouldn't have anything to do with my debate performance either. It's just that people would recognize that there's another choice. Then he sticks out his tongue and says, I can debate them like this and then he says something else that I could not understand at all. And I really feel for that reporter, Casey Hunt, having to interview the guy and him just sticking his tongue out like that. I mean, that's just beautiful. Like I said, I can't really blame the mainstream media for not taking Gary Johnson seriously after that, because that really was. I get trying to be quirky. I get trying to be different. I mean, Lord knows I'm quirky and different as well. But there's a good quirky and there's a bad quirky. And Gary Johnson became that bad quirky. And I honestly think him sticking that tongue out became the one thing that cost the Libertarian Party the 5% they needed to become the third major party in the United States. And likely we will not see them have another chance for yet another generation. Great job, Gary Johnson. Or how about Senator Ron Johnson and him basically expressing concerns regarding the whole Trump escapades in the Ukraine this week, and then decides, never mind, I'm good. Yeah, great idea there. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, Trump's likely not going to be removed from office. But him just not mentioning how wrong Trump is with his strong-arming of the Ukrainian president, it's like, yeah, nothing to see here. And then, of course, our 17th president of the United States, Andrew Johnson, the original president to be impeached, but yet not removed from office. Mostly over his dealings with the Secretary of War at the time, Edwin Stanton, following the Civil War. So, I think that the lesson to learn out of all of this is, if the last name of the politician is Johnson, they are likely going to screw something up. So remember, kids, don't vote with your Johnson. Okay, that did not sound right. Oh, hell, what am I saying? This is a political podcast. Most kids aren't watching this. And if they are, what's wrong with their parents? I mean, I use the words fuck and shit so many times, I've had to turn the Apple iTunes rating to mature audiences only. And if any episode needed that mature rating, it was today, because, man, have I found a bunch of shit that has made me angry. I think I've said shit and fuck more times this episode than I have in the last 10 put together. So tell you what, since I have talked about mostly things that have pissed me off, instead of me pissing you off, how about I end on a happy note? And that is this Emerson Poll. And basically, if you are a Yang fan like me, this will be a very happy poll. If you're anybody else, this is not going to be a very happy poll, especially if you're a Kamala Harris fan. So I do apologize in advance, and I will just say click on the next timestamp if you don't want to hear this. But according to the latest Emerson poll, Andrew Yang had moved up to 4th place nationally with 8%. Now, this is almost certainly an outlier. I'm going to say that right away. I mean, the polls following it showed that he was getting 2s and 3s still, so it looks like it hasn't really moved the needle very much yet, but we'll see if this outlier does move the needle up for him to get to the 4 and 5 range over the next couple of weeks. A couple things I saw that were kind of promising with this Emerson poll is how they methoded the poll, I guess you could say. And that is that 2/3 of the audience that they polled came from landline and 1/3 came from online. And you would think, with someone like Andrew Yang, that he would get far and above the majority of his votes in an online setting. And while in the August poll that they did, you would be kind of right, he did get 10% there. In this poll, what was surprising was that he actually got only 7% online and a little over 9% in the landline. That's actually pretty good progress, and I'm hoping that that will hold on in other polls to come from here on out. But again, 8%, pretty good, pretty awesome. We'll see where it goes from there, and we'll see where the momentum leads in that. And I believe that's the show, everyone. I did want to get into the November Democratic debate bubble watch that I created, but I think I'll be doing that next week. So until then, this is the Cynical Centrist reminding you, if I'm not pissing you off, I'm not doing my job. I'm going to head back to moving now. Bye, everybody.